Today I'm gonna explain you one very important thing. It's how to get real punchy drums. I want to close this question for you forever. So I believe and I hope what you're gonna see today is gonna be one of the best lessons you ever seen. Hi guys, it's Andrew Zeleno again. I'm a professional audio engineer with more than 10 years of experience in the industry. Also, I teach people how to work with audio more than 4 years on the internet. My course is really unique because we always compare your homeworks with the best sounding songs in the world, made by guys from top 20 audio engineers. And in real time, I show you how to get on the same level. So in this case, you see your progress, you see in real time how I bring your mixes on the same level like top 20 audio engineers. It's absolutely unique. Check that course. Today I'm gonna explain you one very important thing in modern music. It's how to get real punchy drums. One of the most important part in this process is parallel compression. If you think you know everything about parallel compression, just watch my video. I think you can be amazed. You know, I always believed that parallel compression is kind of a mystic thing. A lot of people don't understand correctly. A lot of people think up a lot of explanations for this very simple trick. Parallel compression works like this. You copy your original instrument or whatever you want and you just compress your copy. And then you blend them together, original sound and compressed sound. That's it. Also it's called New York style compression, and people very like how parallel compression works. It's not always a right decision to use parallel compression. People always do in the next way. Listen to the snare. They always try to listen to without parallel compression and with parallel compression. And it's always better with parallel compression. Let's try it out. So I used very famous, historically proven SSL master bus compressor. And everyone screams, "Wow, it works so great, parallel compression is the best trick in the world." Right? No, it's bullshit. Because when I didn't have that parallel compressor, it sounded just quieter. And when I turn it on, it sounds much louder. And that's why you think it sounds much better. This is how our ears work. 95% of people, when they hear something louder, they think it sounds better. I'm gonna show you how it will be sounding if I won't use any parallel compressor, but I'm gonna make my main snare just louder. Let's listen to this. Not bad, right? Without parallel compressor. So always match your levels. Only then you can realize if it sounds better or it's just illusion. So let's go to our main topic. Teachers always teach in this way. It sounds better, do this, do that, turn this knob, turn that knob. How I teach, I always start with our goals. The real professional audio engineer mixer always think why he needs to do something. Not just because somebody does the same. Not just because it's a cool trick. You always need to understand why you need to apply something. So first of all, you need to understand what goals of every process in audio engineering. My students write them down on each topic and they do homeworks, and only then they start to realize where in what situations they can apply something. But not only purposes. I always teach people cons of each process, disadvantages of every process, because in audio engineering there is nothing like if you do that, it always gonna be better. If you improve something, you always get something worse than it was before your processing. So my students always realize every purposes for each processing and every disadvantages of this processing. Only then you can get the best possible results. This is why when we compare their works, we can bring them to the same level like top 20 audio engineers. So I'm gonna describe it for you right now. From the beginning, the real reason of using parallel compression is not to change your original sound. Because when you use regular compression, if we can say like that, you always change your sound. Sometimes you need to keep your original natural sounding sources. That's why you use parallel compression. You need to realize that if you compress your source, it's gonna be something different. If you compress only copy of the source and you blend these two tracks together, you still have some percentage of your original sound. This is the main reason when you need to apply your parallel compression. For example, if you compress your vocal and your vocal doesn't sit in the mix, you need to control the dynamics of your vocal. Sometimes you need to make it very flat to sit right in the mix. You don't want some words to be louder and other words to be quieter. That's why sometimes you apply a lot of compression on your vocals. Sometimes compressor does very cool things in timbre sense for your vocal. So sometimes you don't need to have raw original sounding vocal. That's why professionals don't apply parallel compression for vocal very often. It's not often that you need to apply your parallel compression on each track of your mix. Parallel compression works with drums. It's obvious you not always need to apply your compression on, for example, snare. Sometimes using regular compression on a snare, you can kill its original acoustic and ambient sounding voice. That's why you use parallel compressor, maybe to emphasize transients. Transients are clicks in the beginning. People sometimes call it attack or punchy part of your drums in the beginning of each hit. But you still have your acoustic and natural sounding snare. That's why parallel compression works in this case. Second purpose, when you try to enhance your sound. If your snares sound pretty raw or maybe there is not enough harmonics, parallel compressor always has its own coloration. So you add this coloration to your snare. And for example, in the mixing can be more audible, you can emphasize your snare in this way. Next purpose, if you want to make your snare more thick, more dense, if we can say like that, right? On my course we have one of the best topics called dynamics. It takes maybe 8 or 10 lessons and it covers everything that you can possibly imagine. Right now I don't have time to explain all these things, but when you use lower ratio, like 2:1, it makes your sound more dense, more thick. And you can use these ratios on your parallel compressors in order to get your sound more fat, more dense. The next purpose is very cool trick in mastering. It's when you apply parallel compression only on some frequency range. For example, it can be like this. You need to master some songs and people recorded a bass guitar very weak, it doesn't have that deep sounding low end. Maybe when they mixed their song, they might not compress enough low end, so the low end can hum pretty badly on some notes and it can be not enough bass low end on the other notes. It's very big problem and very common problem on amateur mixes. So in this case you can apply parallel compression only on the low end frequency range. You make all notes sounding like about on the same level. You make them fatter, deeper, and then you can adjust the volume of whole low end according to other frequency ranges. And this is how mastering works in this way. Right now it seems like parallel compression is absolutely amazing thing. No, it's not right, because when you use parallel compressor, sometimes you can get more dirty results. Using that parallel compressors, you can put too many harmonics, too many noise in your sound, because when you push your compressors hard, you always bring low levels higher. And it can sound very noisy, very dirty and all that stuff. Another bad thing about parallel compressor, if you need to control your dynamics, parallel compressors not always can handle this. Using parallel compressor, you preserve a lot of original dynamics. So always consider disadvantages of each process. And I always think it's my responsibility to teach people in this way, and nobody does the same. And that's why my students become real professionals. Sometimes using parallel compressors you can get your sound muddier. So always try to keep your levels and then make A/B test to understand what it gave you. Next part, how you use parallel compressors. There is 3 ways. First way is just real copy. I'm gonna show you. Look at this. Let's work with our kick. It sounds like this. You apply your compressor only on the copy. Then you are trying to figure out what kind of parallel compression you want. I'm gonna explain everything just a little bit later. Right now I just want maybe to emphasize my transient. I'm gonna use like 10 milliseconds. I want to control my tail, so I'm gonna use medium release like 300, and I'm gonna start from regular 4:1. 4:1 in this compressor sounds not that muddy because 2:1 it's pretty soft knee compressor. It's one of the things that people don't know about SSL Master Bass. When you use 4:1 the knee is not that soft, and to make a transient pretty audible I want to compress it pretty hard, like 6 or 8 decibels. And then I can blend them. It's better to do it in the next way. Start it from -infinity and you make it louder. When you find that point, sometimes it's already too much, so you bring it just a little bit lower and it seems like the sweet spot. The second way how you can do it, using aux buses. The green one is my aux bus. I already have my SSL parallel compressor on this aux bus. I'm gonna send my kick on this aux bus. It works the same like copy of your track. Sometimes people don't understand how sends work. It's very easy. It's like pipes with water. You just put some additional pipe to your main pipe. And then the same water goes with that pipe and new pipe, and they meet on the master bus. You can put something on your water on the second pipe, like our parallel compressor. You can change the consistency of your water. Maybe you can salt it, you can color this water in red color, for instance. And then that uncolored water you blend with red water together and you get some new water in the end. So right now I'm gonna create that sound from my kick track, like this track, aux, right? And right now I'm gonna decide what level I need to use. In this case we work in the next way. You need to push your compressor with that level. Let's make it. Right now you can mute your aux track to understand what it makes to your mix. And again, it's not fair, right? There is different levels, so you need to match them. And then you can decide if your parallel compressor works for your mix or it doesn't work. Then you can change your settings on your parallel compressor in order to get the right settings. And the third way how you can do it, you can use some plugin that already have that blender. It's SSL Master Bass from Native Instruments. A lot of people think that every SSL Master Bass compressor sounds the same. First of all, never believe that plugins are the real copy of the real compressors, especially if you have your own SSL like I have. Also, you know that every plugin sounds different, right? From Native Instruments, SSL Master Bass, from SSL Company. By the way, I officially tested this plugin for SSL Company. Also, it can be Waves, Setamic the Glue, and UAD SSL Master Bass and all that plugins. They sound different. It proves one of two things. They sound not like the real compressor, or only one of them sounds right and other compressors sound not right. Also, don't forget that SSL company made that compressor in 80s, and there were a couple of modifications of SSL consoles. So they could change their sound from different periods. For example, 9000 SSL doesn't sound absolutely the same like 4000 SSLs. The release on this plugin has different settings. It was like 9000 SSL. SSLs went back to 300, 600, and right now current SSL duality consoles and 900 plus consoles has 300, 600, etc. Okay. And it's not parallel compression right now. Here we have this knob called dry. It means dry signal. That signal that wasn't compressed. And you can blend that uncompressed signal to this signal. So in this case, makeup, it's like volume of your compressed signal, and dry is the volume of your uncompressed signal. That's it. Sometimes on some plugin you can have mix knob. Mix knob works like a real blender. It's easier to use than these separate knobs. Today we don't have too much time, so I'm gonna skip a lot of parts of this topic for this video. Sorry for that. Those who gonna attend my course will be experts in all that stuff. And you will do homeworks, and we're gonna compare your results with the best sounding songs in the world. By the way, subscribe to my channel and you will find a lot of great videos on mixing, on music writing. Just check my channel, there is a lot of very useful stuff. And don't forget to check the link in the description of this video. There you will find the link to my website and you can read about my course. Next thing that a lot of people don't understand. You can work in two ways. First, when you try to preserve your original dynamics, your original sounding instruments, and you can put just a little bit of parallel compression to your sound. And you can make thicker sounding, you can make your sound more colored, but you can work in different way. Your compressed signal can be the main signal, and you can blend just a little bit your original sound. In this way, you need to consider this process like trying to restore your original sound, but you still need that compression, that emphasizing of your transient or controlling your dynamics. What I'm trying to say, you always need to consider what the most important part of your parallel compression. Compressed signal or uncompressed signal. On the courses, in audio schools, on the internet, nobody talk about it. You have your purposes. For example, you choose some purpose like, I want to preserve my original sound, but I want to control more dynamics of my instrument. Then always ask yourself, do I really have my original sound after this processing? If you do in this way, you never lose. Next problem with parallel compression, nobody think about pre or post send. If you use post fader send, then if you change your volume, for example on the automation stage, for example you made your guitars 2 decibels louder, it means you will push your parallel compressor more. Your compressor is gonna make your copy of your guitar quieter, because you push your compressor harder. Do you understand that you change balance between your original guitar and your compressed guitar? How do you think, how many people think about these things? I think maybe 3.25. If you use presend. So in this case, when you make your guitar louder, it means it doesn't affect your compressor. Your original sound of your guitar is gonna be louder, but your compressed sound is gonna be on the same level. And you change your balance. Right now we don't have time and I'm not gonna resolve this problem for you, but I asked this question. It's already a big deal for you. So never consider like it's very easy things, and my students get homeworks on this topic and then we can resolve all questions. Right now it's very interesting part. I'm gonna show you historically proven compressors. First of all, what you need to do is you need to correct your levels. It's very important to work with faders because sometimes people who mix, you always try to use some plugins, some magic techniques, right? But you forget about the main part of mixing. It's working with your levels. So first of all, let's make it. So I'm gonna mute my head, overhead and rooms, and I'm gonna match my levels right here. I bring my overheads right now. And room track. So as you see, I don't want to make them pretty ambient and I don't want to make them pretty dry. Right now I'm gonna show you some brilliant idea. You know, in Analog Studio, in 90% you know only one way how to use parallel compressor. It's when you gather all your drum tracks together and you use parallel compressor through that bus, right? So in this case I'm gonna use aux, right, like 0 dB, and I can copy this send for all my tracks. Then I'm gonna blend. So this is without parallel compressor. Okay, right now I want to emphasize my transients. For instance, this is how your wave looks. So you have that pretty high frequency punch in the beginning, like click. Then you have your main transient. And then you have your tail of your drum, like this. When you use very short attack, it works like this. Your compressor starts to compress your drum instantly, from the beginning. In this way, your main part, including your transient, is gonna become quieter. Like this. So as you see, your drum became quieter. That's it. What you can achieve using 10 milliseconds on attack. Your compressor kind of sleeps 10 milliseconds before it wakes up and screams, "Oh my god, I'm too late, I need to compress it right now." This range is like 10 milliseconds. So your compressor starts only from this point. And it makes your tail quieter. As you see right now, the starting part of your drum still loud, but your main part, your tail, is pretty quiet. You can make your drum louder to bring back your tail volume, but in this case your transient is gonna be louder. This is how you emphasize your punch in your drums. Let's compare how it sounds with parallel compressor and without. But as you understand, it's not fair. It sounds awesome right now than it sounded before, but it's not fair because it's pretty quiet. Kick is just combination of kick in and kick out. And snare the same. I just made it for you not to spend too much time on blending a lot of drums. But obviously you can use it even in the same way. If you have kick in and kick out, or maybe even sub mic, you can blend them in some way. You can group them in the group called kick, and you will have the same group called kick like I have. I just have audio track. This is without parallel compressor but louder. And with parallel compressor. Do you still think that your parallel compression made a lot for you? It's crazy because we always thought that parallel compressor in this way can give us a lot of great things. But right now I just understood that I just needed to make my drums louder, that's it. It puts us in some kind of a shock, because we never thought that it was about levels. In my case I have 300 milliseconds. By the way, it's not too long release. But in this case, what we compress is the whole drum mix. Something like its kick with all mics blended together. This is snare and another kick, because now our kick doesn't sound like boom, boom, with long intervals. Our drums can sound like this, tudun dun tish, tudun dun tish, right? Between that kicks is gonna be tudun dun. It means that some kick can be pretty close to other kick. And right now our compressor is gonna work with this first kick. It's gonna be like this, 10 milliseconds. And only then it starts to compress our tail of our first kick, like this. It's called curve of gain reduction. Right now I'm not gonna explain what it means, but you will be experts in all that stuff when you attend my course. Even if you make it 100 milliseconds, it still can touch your transient of your next hit. In this case it's snare, so it can kill your transients in the beginning of your snare, because nobody guarantees you that there will be no compression when your next hit hits. You know? And then it push your compressor again. And your compressor gonna compress it again. And in this case, on this kick, as you see, distance between these two kicks is pretty short. It means that when the next kick hits, your compressor is gonna compress pretty hard, like 6 or 8 decibels. And it kills your all kick in this place. So this is why my parallel compressor haven't emphasized those transients. How we can handle this problem? You can use, for example, separate parallel compressor for your kick and separate parallel compressor for your snare. Your kick hits and you have a lot of space before the next kick is gonna hit. Maybe some kick is gonna suffer from your compressor, but not each kick, and your compressor is gonna finish before the next kick hits. The same with snare. Your compressor is gonna work, but then it's gonna be some kicks, and this compressor doesn't work with kicks. And only after a while you're gonna have your next snare. And in this case your compressor is gonna be very successful, working on your transients. It's awesome, it's brilliant, and I don't know any teacher who mentioned all this stuff. I'm gonna create another aux. I'm gonna delete all sends from head, overhead and room, and I'm gonna use only first compressor for kick, like this. And I'm gonna do the same with my snare, but right now I'm gonna send my snare to another aux, like this. So this is how it sounds without compressor. Notice how our kick doesn't have any punch in the beginning of each hit. And right now with parallel compressor. Of course I haven't matched perfectly, but anyway you can see how our kick became more present, became more colored. Right now it has that punchy transient in the beginning. Our snare sounds like you know, you hear it and you just love it. A lot of guys from you who have big experience can say, okay, how about sounding together, right? Very good acoustic drums sound great when they sound like one instrument. I invented for myself very cool trick. I just want to send my hi-hat, my overhead and my room to the same parallel compressor, but with very low level. I don't want my head or overhead or room affect my compressor at all. I just want to give them the opportunity to pass through that compressor, to get just a little bit of the same coloration, the same form of sound. It's kind of like -30. Do the same for overheads and for room mics. It sounds just awesome, you know, it's that drums that everybody loves. It sounds just amazing, it's punchy, powerful, but notice, by the way, I haven't applied any EQ, any regular compressors on my channels. I haven't put any reverb, but you can work in this way. So you start from parallel compressor if you really need it. I emphasize this. Then you can start your EQs. So it's the same techniques when you use master bus compressor in the beginning of your mixing. It's very popular and well-known mixing trick. But you can do the same with your drum bus. Just imagine what you can get with these drums. It's gonna be awesome. Also, I wanted to show you a couple of more historically proven compressors, but I think we don't have time for today right now. I just want to mention them, okay? I show you Waves SSL Master Bus. It's great to use UAD SSL Master Bus, Native Instruments SSL Solid Compressor, SSL from SSL. It's awesome plugin, I'm gonna show you. I was official tester for this plugin for SSL company, and they presented this plugin for free. Also can use Cetomic the glue, also you can use Gray compressor from Slate Digital, and of course Neve Master Bus compressors like 33609, and further of this compressor like 2254 or 2264. Waves has this compressor called V-Comp. It's very natural sounding compressor that has pretty open upper mid range. This compressor doesn't have that many settings. It's the best to use like 400 milliseconds or auto release. Try to use 2 to 1, 3 to 1, 4 to 1, 6 to 1. Don't be afraid about a lot of compression. For parallel processing, it's okay. Next type of parallel compression, it's like dirty parallel compression. It's when you use 11E76 compressor in all-to-one mode or SSL Listen Mic compressor. So I soloed my kick. This is all-to-one mode. It means that it's gonna be pretty aggressive and very dirty noise results. It's so awesome and very famous technique. In this case, I'm gonna use pretty aggressive settings on attack 1 and release 7. I don't have time to explain this right now, but we will have on the course with my students. And as you see, I'm gonna compress pretty hard, up to 20 decibels. So this is how it sounds without parallel compressor and with. Right now I'm gonna show you why. Sometimes it can be very useful. If you have pretty aggressive music, when you use for your aggressive guitars, drums like this, it sounds like comp drums. Again, without and with. It's very powerful and punchy and big, pretty fat sounding drum. Another compressor is SSL Listen Mic compressor. There was amazing story about this compressor and I'm gonna tell you the story on my course. But right now I'm just gonna show you how it sounds. For this case you can download this free plugin from SSL website, but right now I'm gonna use the same plugin built in this drum strip plugin that I tested for SSL company as well. Without, with. It's hello from 80s. It's very common techniques from that period of time. And right now I'm gonna show you another tricks that you can use for your drums. It's when you use the same technique but not for your kick or snare, but also or just for your room track. And right now it sounds like this. Only room will be sent to my aux bus. It sounds okay, but it sounds too noisy. There is something wrong with Transients, you know, it sounds like pretty dirty and bad sounding cheap drums. I don't know if I really invented this, but I use it. Once I was sitting and thinking, what's going on when you blend a lot of mics of your drums together? The really interesting thing, if you understand that the distance makes a lot of things for your drum sounds. For example, if you have your mic pretty close to your snare, this mic will hear your hit instantly. But, for example, your room mics can stand from your drums like 5 meters. There is a lot of ways to put your room mics. For example, let's imagine your room mics are 5 meters from your drums. 5 meters is around 15 milliseconds. It's not the right number, but just imagine like 15 milliseconds. Our black color is gonna be our close mic. So when our snare hits, it looks like this. Our room mic here's the same, but much quieter, because it's far away from our snare. 15 milliseconds later, something like that. Like 15 milliseconds later. I emphasize transients and I compress like 20 dB. It means that my room mic is gonna look like this. It's gonna be pretty loud because I emphasize my transients pretty a lot. And right now my drums sounds like this. Notice that we have pretty noticeable transients in the same hit, and it's not on the same time. It means like double hit, and it sounds dirty. That's why it sounds that awful. I decided not to emphasize transients on my drums. Actually opposite, I want to kill transients, not to make my drums sound dirty. Instead of this, I just want to make this without any transients on my rooms, and I'm gonna blend them together as well. So in this case it's gonna be clearer. So let's try it out. I will use the shortest attack that 11E76 can allow us to use, and listen to this now. I want to bring my close mics higher and make my kick and snare more certain.